morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, April 28th, 2017. I am Dave Biddle, and I am very happy to be joined by Brandon Castel. Brandon, of course, first round of the NFL Draft was last night, filled with drama and intrigue as always, and filled with Buckeyes. 3 Buckeyes went in the first round, which seemed like a lock a week ago, and then seemed like there would only be 2 going into the draft because of the Gareon Conley uncertainty. But he was able to convince teams, at least one team in particular, that the allegations against him were untrue, and the 4 now Oakland Raiders took him with the 24th selection, so that's great for Gareon Conley. Marshon Lattimore was the first Buckeye off the board, number 11 to the New Orleans Saints, or maybe you call the New Orleans Buckeyes with all the Buckeyes they have down there now. Malik off the board, 15th to the Indianapolis Colts, another team that's littered with Buckeyes now. So just a great day for the Buckeyes, great night for the Buckeyes. Just your takeaway from Lattimore, Hooker, and especially Conley being drafted last night.
Yeah, I was going to say, about a week ago, it really wouldn't have been a surprise if we were talking today saying that all 3 of those guys went in the first round. In fact, we might have thought it was a shock if they hadn't. So, obviously Conley was the big one going in. I just wasn't sure if teams would have enough time to do research and to really feel good about the situation. It certainly seemed like, from all the evidence that was out there and what we were hearing and everything else, it certainly seemed like he was going to get the pass from these teams, that they were confident that, he was being set up, or that it wasn't true. But I just wasn't sure if they would have enough to go on by the time the draft got here to feel good about using a first round pick. But, it sounds like the Raiders did a lot of research, more than even some of the other teams. I think the quote was they did miles and miles of research to make sure that there was no red flags with this kid that would prevent them from taking him in the first round. So with that being said, obviously that's big for him, big for the university to have that happen. And I don't know the details. Obviously, none of us were there, but it's great to see a kid's career not get ruined, or his night not get ruined by something like that if it turns out that it wasn't legit. So. I think that was good to see that a team was willing to, do that much research and take a kid like that, knowing that, he was a guy who was probably, top 15 talent, top 20 talent, and they got him, late in the first round. So, I thought it was interesting that, the Saints were the team that grabbed, the first Buckeye off the board at 11. For me, I thought Hooker was kind of the top guy in this class. If I was an NFL team, I think he's a difference maker from day one. Guy who can play center field. He's a freak athlete. He's a ball hawk. But going to a really good situation in Indianapolis for him. I think that he can be a part of what's going on. Something pretty special there in Indy, if they can get things turned around with all these Buckeyes they've brought in. But yeah, overall, big night for them, big night for, Ohio State, for Urban Meyer, for his staff, for what they've done and developed. But I think they all landed in pretty good spots. As the draft always plays out, I think Conley ended up in the best spot because the Raiders are going to be competing for, potentially competing for the playoffs and for championships next year. And I think he could come in and potentially win a starting job right from the start.
All right, let's talk about your Browns. A lot of debate if they did the right or wrong thing last night. What's funny to me is leading up to the draft, every mock draft had Myles Garrett going number 1 to the Browns. Adam Schefter, to his credit, was the first one to report there was a chance that the Browns, he said the Browns were seriously looking at taking Trubisky number 1 overall, and a lot of people laughed at that. Turns out that they were seriously considering that, to the point where all of these people who had been picking Myles Garrett in every one of their mock drafts, hundreds of mock drafts, all changed yesterday. Like Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, their final mock draft, they both had Mitch Trubisky going number 1 overall to the Browns. So that adds a little intrigue at the top, and it ended up being Myles Garrett. Want to get your take on that, then passing on Trubisky there, who then went number 2 overall, of course, when the Bears traded like 50 picks to move up 1 spot, which I thought that was the height of stupidity. Because Trubisky probably would have been there at number 3 for the Bears. They didn't need to do that, in my opinion. Assuming that another team wasn't going to trade up with the Niners, but anyway, I thought that was too much to give up. So the Browns take Myles Garrett. Then they're sitting there at 12, and as a Bengals fan, my heart sunk. It was like, oh no, they're going to take Deshaun Watson, and he's going to turn their franchise around. I can't believe Deshaun Watson fell to 12. And then they trade the pick to the Texans, who take Deshaun Watson. They go, okay, they picked up an extra first-round pick. This is what they're doing. That's probably not a bad idea if they weren't sold on Watson. Maybe I'm wrong. But then they take Jabrill Peppers 25th. Maybe you feel differently about Peppers. This has nothing to do with him playing at Michigan. If he was from Florida, I'd say the same thing, or USC. He just, to me, is a second-round guy. He's a guy that's going to be a good punt returner, good kick returner. I don't know if he's going to be a good safety, and you better know if he's going to be a good safety if you take him in the first round. Just your take on everything your Cleveland Browns did.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, I think you know as well as I do that they wouldn't be the Cleveland Browns if things had gone perfectly last night. If they had snagged Garrett at 1 and they just sat there and all along they came out and they're like, listen, guys, the whole Trubisky thing was a smokescreen. We wanted Deshaun Watson all along. You know, we helped to build up all these other guys, Mahomes and you know, get everybody all riled up, and then we got the guy we wanted at 12 anyways, and came away with, you know, the 2 players we wanted right from the start. You know, that's like what I think some people are like, that's what they're doing behind the scenes, and I'm like, have you covered the Browns? Have you been around the Browns for the last 20 years? It's not how they operate. You know, that's the only reason I bought into the Trubisky talk to begin with, because I was like, you know, it would just be the Cleveland Browns to overthink this. And, you know, at the last second for the owner to come in and say, I want the quarterback regardless of, you know, where he should go in the draft. Now, I think Mitchell Trubisky will probably be a pretty good pick for the Bears. I think they gave up way too much, like you said, to move up one spot. Heck of a job, you know, by John Lynch and the folks in San Francisco to convince them that, you know, they had to give up that much to move up one spot, and then San Francisco ended up getting the guy they wanted the whole time anyway. So, you know, that's usually the stuff that happens to the Browns. So I think, you know, when you need a quarterback though, and you find a guy that you somewhat like, or you think might be the guy, could be the guy, you know, has some qualities that could make him the guy, you go a little crazy. You do whatever you have to do, and in some senses is kind of the mentality to go get that guy. And from the Browns' perspective, I'm glad they didn't, you know, overthink it to the point where you never live that down. If they take Trubisky 1 and Myles Garrett turns out to be an all-pro guy, you know, you never really live that down. It's gonna continue to follow the franchise around. So I thought they should have taken Watson at 12. He was the quarterback I liked all along. But, you know, obviously they didn't feel the same way about him. They know they need a quarterback, so the fact they didn't take him at 12, you know, obviously they didn't like Watson that much. So moved down and made the Peppers pick. And I really like the, you know, the second pick they made, the tight end out of Miami. He's a freak. You know, he's a guy that I think could be, you know, a real impact player down the road. He's young. He's only 20 years old, but I'm with you. Little confused about the Jabrill Peppers pick. You know, to me, if you really wanted a safety and you needed a game changer, you know, I'm staying at 12 and taking Malik Hooker, and just calling it a day and going home with, you know, Myles Garrett and Malik Hooker, knowing I've got 2 starters on my defense. I don't know what you've got in Jabrill Peppers. I know he's a great athlete, but to your point, I don't know if he's a safety. I don't know if he can cover. I really don't know, you know, exactly what they're going to do with him, and what they envision for him. If you're taking him as a return guy and a, you know, specialist, I mean, and a nickel guy, you can't do that at 25 when you're the Cleveland Browns. You don't have that luxury. You're not the Patriots. You're not the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Ravens. You know, you've got to go get football players. So, you know, we'll see. I mean, I think the kid has a lot of talent, but I just don't know if it translates to the things that you need a safety to do in the NFL.
Let's look ahead to tonight. It looks like that Curtis Samuel is a lock to go tonight. There's just no doubt about it. My only question is, will he be a second-rounder or a third-rounder? I think he will be a second-rounder. And then probably Raekwon McMillan will also go tonight. I think he's, you know, maybe not a lock like Samuel, but pretty close to being a lock. Maybe Pat Elflein will go tonight in the third round. Just look at tonight. Who do you think is going to go, and maybe what round do you think they're going to go in?
Yeah, I'm with you on Curtis Samuel. I do think that he's going to be a second-round guy. I think he could be pretty quick off the board. You know, obviously Dalvin Cook's still out there, and he's the guy that everyone, you know, is waiting to see where he's going to fall. You know, somewhat of a similar player. A little surprised that he fell out of the first round. I know there's some issues with him on the field and off the field. So, you know, I'm not 100% surprised, but pretty good situation for a team like the Packers or Seattle if they really decide they need a running back. You wouldn't be entirely shocking if they're both thinking, hey, I want this Dalvin Cook guy. If the Packers take him at 33 to see the Seahawks maybe make a move on Curtis Samuel at 34. But assuming he falls past that, I think you're going to see him. It kind of depends on what teams are thinking with Mixon. He's the other guy that's kind of in the mix, that is going to factor, I think, into where Curtis Samuel goes. But, I see him going somewhere in the second round. Wouldn't surprise me to see one of these Buckeye teams, the Steelers, the Colts, somebody like that, take a flyer on him in the second round. But yeah, I think he's a guy for sure. Raekwon McMillan's interesting. He's a second round, maybe borderline first round talent in my opinion. Watching him at Ohio State, really become the face of that defense and the leader of that defense. It's just the league has gone away from guys like that. It really has. It's the one thing you can say about the Peppers pick is the league has gone more towards the tweeners and the guys who can be flexible and move around than the traditional kind of thud middle linebackers. And so it's going to take a team that, really recognizes that they need to stop the run. One of those smash mouth type teams, a team that, has a lot of, historically likes that kind of defense. So you could see him ending up anywhere. I think maybe towards the end of the second round is probably where I would guess that he'll go. A team like Seattle, the Giants, something like that could make a move. The Chiefs, teams like that I could see making a move on a guy like McMillan. And then with Elflein, I'm guessing third round is probably where he comes off the board. He has that versatility that I think teams look for in the offensive line. If you're saying, well, I don't know exactly where he fits, but I know I need some depth. I think he's one of those kind of guys. So obviously a huge first day for them, getting the three guys off the board and kind of keeping that momentum rolling that they've built with this program. And then I think you'll see a couple more guys come off the board, today, but, definitely Curtis Samuel, I think, is the top guy to watch coming into tonight. I'm a big Curtis Samuel fan in college, and I think he will translate to kind of the new NFL that's more speed-based and, looks for guys who are versatile like him.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Good points. Hey, before I let you go, let's talk really quick about Ohio State basketball recruiting. Darius Bazley, number one player in the state of Ohio in the 2018 class, had been committed to Ohio State for quite some time. Decommitted a couple days ago. Okay, we see that all the time. This kid, in addition to being ranked as the number one player in Ohio, he's the number 15 small forward in the country, number 53 overall player in the country, four-star recruit, kid out of Cincinnati, Finneytown. So, a very good recruit, not an elite recruit, but very good recruit. Okay, so he decommitted. All right, that happens. That's disappointing, even though, he was the first one to commit in this class, and this is supposed to be a very good class, or at least he was one of the first ones to commit, and this is supposed to be an excellent class in 2018. Then he comes out and he talks to our buddy Adam Jardy from the Columbus Dispatch, and I don't think he was trying to blast the program, but he was quoted on the record saying things like he doesn't feel like Ohio State could get him ready for the NBA. Let's just stop right there for a second. Whatever you want to say about Thad Matta, let's go down the list here. It was 2 years ago they had somebody named D'Angelo Russell, who was the number 2 overall pick of the draft. Previous to that, Evan Turner, number 2 overall pick of the draft. Mike Conley, number 4 overall pick of the draft. Oh, by the way, highest paid player in NBA history. That'll last till this offseason, but still. Greg Oden, number 1 overall pick. Other number 1 picks like Costa Koufos, Byron Mullins. It's just ridiculous to say Ohio State can't get you ready for the NBA. So I want you to touch on that. And I also want you to touch on this. This is what really gets me, is he then takes a shot at Ohio State's incoming recruits, saying that the class of 2017 recruiting class just doesn't seem to be that good. And you're talking about, that's basically taking a shot at Caleb Lesson, who's one of the best centers in the country. Now maybe he means Caleb Lesson's good, but they didn't have enough guys, and maybe it's more of a shot at Braxton Beverly and the lack of numbers. But to me, that comes across as a shot at Caleb Lesson. So this just comes across as a kid that doesn't know Ohio State's history of putting players into the NBA, including 2 years ago the number 2 overall pick with Russell, and then to take a shot at these 2017 kids that are coming in. This just rubs me the wrong way. I know it's a kid talking, but it still rubs me the wrong way, B-Cast.
Yeah, I'm with you a little bit. I do think that obviously he ignored a little bit of the history of Ohio State with sending guys to the league and what, Thad has been able to accomplish. That's the one thing. Say what you will about Thad, but he has absolutely been able to send guys to the league, especially when you compare to really the history of the Ohio State basketball program before Thad Matta. So, he's done more in his time there than basically all the other guys put together. So, I think that was a little bit, you could say, short-sighted in his understanding. But I will say this. I do think this is what happens when you start to lose momentum within your program. When you start to lose kind of stringing together some good recruiting classes, getting kids kind of having that buzz around coming to your program, you start to get kids who look around and say, hey, maybe I like this kid in the class, but I don't really see a lot of other guys. And I'm looking at next year's class, and I see kids who are looking at other schools, and I talk to some of the guys in that class, and they're not really looking at Ohio State. And you start to get that feeling like maybe the guys who are going to do big things and are going to play on the big stage, are looking at other schools, especially being in Cincinnati, a little bit far away from kind of the Ohio State base in terms of the Cleveland, Columbus, kind of central North Ohio. I know there've been some pretty good players to come out of there, and obviously Urban and, Kerry Combs and the staff have done a good job on the football side, but they have done a great job of kind of having that flavor of the month feel that Urban talked about when he first got to Ohio State. It's getting kids psyched, getting them excited, getting them feeling like, hey, we're going to put you on the big stage. You're going to come here, you're going to win championships, and you're going to go to the league. And I don't think Ohio State has that vibe from a basketball program like it did really even if you go back a couple years ago when D'Angelo Russell first got to Ohio State. You felt like, hey, if they can get a couple more guys in here, and they had some other good recruits come in that maybe just didn't kind of pan out the way that people thought they would. But, I definitely take it as a little bit of a slight to the program and what that has accomplished. But, I personally believe that there's a little bit of slippage in terms of the vision or the view that kids have of the Ohio State program and kind of the draw of playing there right now, just because of things like missing the tournament. You don't see these guys playing in March. These kids are watching all these other teams that are calling them and recruiting them playing on, in the March Madness tournament. And you're thinking, okay, well, I'm going to get there at Ohio State and we'll put them back on top. Those are the kids they need. They're going to need the kids who are like, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to get Ohio State back to the top, we're going to get them back to the tournament, we're going to compete for titles, and, really kind of have that mentality that, like, I'm the missing piece. I'm the reason you're not in the tournament. You need me. Those are the guys that Thad's going to have to find to kind of get that momentum.
You make very good points. I mean, those comments did rub me the wrong way, but it's hard to argue with anything you just said right there. I think you hit the nail on the head. Great stuff as always out of my man Brandon Castel. Really appreciate it, BCast, and really appreciate all listeners out there for tuning into the show. I hope you all have a great day and a great weekend. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.